As I'm walking through my contract with the client, it should really be easy to understand for the most part. If your client can understand what they're saying yes to, that creates trust. So they need to not see a whole bunch of legal jargon, which, in the first early days, I was trying to find a contract I could work with. I finally got I think it was ASID's contract or a version of it that I saw in a textbook that I had for professional practices, and I just kind of piecemealed it together. It was a lot of legal things that I really didn't understand. I'm like, it's in the ASID contract. I'm going to put it in here. And I had no idea what it was saying. And so if a client asked me, what does this mean? I'd say, I don't know. So that doesn't create trust, right? Like, what are they agreeing to? And you have no idea what they're agreeing to either. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 191 of Design Curious Podcast. Today on the podcast, we are talking about contracts. Not super fun, but contracts really are your business bestie, because your contract's not just a piece of paperwork or something that you send over because you're supposed to. It's one of the most important tools in your business. It's your backbone. It helps keep everything clear. All parties are safer. It supports your process. It helps you get paid and gives you something solid to stand on when questions or problems come up. Especially if you're a newer designer or newer business owner, this matters more than you think. A strong contract is not about being cold or rigid. You might just hear the word contract and you start to fall asleep. Some of you might call it also a letter of agreement, to be a little bit less formal or boring, but they're pretty much the same thing. And it's really just something that helps you to be clear and professional and protected. So I'm going to break down 3 things that your contract should be doing for you. Before we get in there, I want to let you know that we have a webinar coming up for those who are thinking about starting a business in interior design, haven't done it yet. I have a webinar to help you explore if you're ready for it, and also how much is that going to cost to start the business. So details for that, you can sign up, are in the show notes. I'd love to have you there and learn to see if you're ready to start your business, if you have what it takes, and if you have enough money set aside to really launch well. Okay, so let's get into the episode. So don't tune out because we're talking about contracts today. I know it doesn't sound super sexy, but believe me, it is one of the most important parts of being an interior designer and having your own business. And it really is your business bestie. So let's go over the 3 things your contract should be doing for you. The first thing is that it should be creating clarity. One of the kindest things that you can give to a client is clarity. It's going to outline and specify all the things that you do for them. A good contract will answer questions before they become issues, and it tells the client what to expect, how your process works, what's included, what's not included, and how communication will happen, how payments work, what happens if something changes. So all of this is huge because so many client problems don't start with bad intentions, right? You're like, yeah, we'll just, wing it, and we don't need a contract. We'll just, I'll just bill you along the way. Things are going to be fine. We get along so great. But things can go wrong, and this is where a contract is really going to be helpful. Also, when you don't have a contract, you have unclear expectations for the client. The client is not exactly told how to communicate with you. Maybe they start texting you day and night and demanding that you respond to them on the weekend. And your contract can tell them that you don't do that, that you're happy to hear from them, but please email me within business hours. Or it could be that you need clarity around the project scope, especially if you're doing fixed fee at all. The project scope becomes so critical. So your contract is going to spell out what is included in your design fees and what's not included, and at which point it might roll into from a fixed fee into hourly, or even if you're hourly along the way, you still need to clarify the project scope. In my contract, I like to have all of the scope clarified. I give them an estimate of design fees. I tell them actual design fees may vary because, don't hold me to it, but this is based on past projects, and this is my best guess on what it will be. And then I also allow room though I am great with scope creep on a project because I allow room for them to add on. So maybe we get started, they're just wanting to do their kitchen. We get into the process, they love it. And they're like, while we're here, I also need to get new dining room furniture and I need new lighting and new bar stools, blah, blah, blah. It's like things that they didn't think they wanted to do to start with because they weren't sure if they could trust me or if they really were going to like working with a designer. But once they decide that they do, then they want to add these things on. No problem. The contract allows for that. We don't have to revisit it. It allows scope to be added at the hour and will be billed at the hourly rate. So no problem there. The contract is already set up for that and it makes it easy peasy. And I know I'm going to get paid for anything that gets added on, and they know that they're going to pay for it. So that's huge. It gives clarity around that. It also gives clarity around when you get paid. So it should be telling the client that you bill monthly if you do hourly. Maybe you bill every 2 weeks, or you can bill at whatever you like, but make sure that you are billing, because then that also keeps you accountable as the designer. The client is expecting a bill every month. You better not be going 3 months without billing them. They'll be asking for it, and they don't want to see a huge bill every 3 months. They want it to be spaced out probably. It's more feasible that way. So yeah, it says when you get paid, how you get paid. Do you accept checks, cash, credit cards, Venmo? How do you want to get paid? What are the best practices? And you get to decide how they send you money. And then it keeps the client from assuming things that are never actually promised to them. So any additional services, maybe you don't include accessorizing in your design fee estimate, then the client will say, I thought that was included. Well, no, it's not. It says here in the contract that can be added as an additional thing. So it really is defining all those things. And I like to go over everything and give that clarity in the initial consultation. And so it's going to go over my services, how I work. I follow a certain program with each project. I go through each step. It doesn't matter the size or the scope of the project. Everything goes through the same process. And so my contract will explain to them how I do that process. Like first we meet with a consultation. That's what we're doing now. And then next we gather information. And so that's when we're going to come back and take measurements and photos, and we'll look at Pinterest boards. And, so I just kind of talk them through the process. And in the meantime, they're getting excited because they can see that their project is going to be handled well, but also like there are tangible steps that they can look forward to on getting their dream home realized. And it will help them understand the phases of the project. And I kind of talk about how there's highs and lows. It's such a great talking tool to have by my side as I'm explaining it in the initial consultation. I can tell them that okay, when we get into project management and demos happening and maybe they decide to live through the construction, I'm warning them, and I will remind them later again how challenging that's going to be for them. Maybe really consider getting an Airbnb while they're demoing or, something like that. We are able to talk through a lot of issues that might come up and maybe things that they hadn't thought about before. It will explain revisions. How many times are you going to revise a design, or how many versions are you going to show them at the presentation? What are the timelines like? How long does it take to go from that initial consultation to a presentation? For some designers, it might take 4 weeks. For some, it might take 4 months. And so this gives clarity to the client on what they can expect on how fast their project is going to move. And then it talks also about purchasing procedures. So here's where a lot of designers complain about clients shopping them. And well, you can put parameters in there and say, you can't shop me, or I'm not going to give you any information that you can go and find the things yourself. Instead, what I like to do is say the designer will suggest and have available for purchase all of these things. You'll be purchasing through the designer, wholesale things only available through the designer. If there's any retail items, it'll be sold to the client at the retail price. We'll, be charging to procure them. But if the client chooses to find an item on their own, maybe they love shopping Facebook Marketplace or something like that, I'm not going to keep them from doing something that they love to do, but then I'm not responsible for that item. They have to store it, or if they're ordering off of Wayfair or something, then they have to receive it, inspect it, take care of any damage claims. I'm not going to touch that at all. That's completely up to them. So a lot of times they'll quickly realize that, okay, yeah, I want to pay for the designer to have it all taken care of, have it stored in their warehouse until it's ready to deliver, because that's a luxury as well, because then you don't have to drop it into the garage where it's already full of plumbing fixtures or something like that. It becomes clear that why we have our process the way it is. So hopefully it just reinforces that they want to purchase through you, but you can have those clarity issues in there about shopping, or whether you are purchasing, they are purchasing, contractors purchasing materials. All that will be explained. And communication expectations, how often can they email you? How often will they hear from you? What's the client responsible for? Like, do they need to get permits, or do they need to hire the contractor themselves? A lot of designers work different ways. And so this is where you can specify how you like to work. And it shouldn't feel confusing or intimidating. Like, it definitely is conversational as I'm walking through my contract with the client. It should really be easy to understand for the most part. If your client can understand what they're saying yes to, that creates trust. So they need to not see a whole bunch of legal jargon, which, in the first early days, I was trying to find a contract I could work with. I finally got I think it was ASID's contract, or a version of it that I saw in a textbook that I had for professional practices, and I just kind of piecemealed it together. I didn't think about actually contacting a contract attorney to look it over, but it's definitely, I recommend doing that. But yeah, so I kind of pieced my contract together. It was a lot of legal things that I really didn't understand. I'm like, it's in the ASID contract, I'm going to put it in here. And I had no idea what it was saying. And so if a client asked me, what does this mean? I'd say, I don't know. So that doesn't create trust, right? Like, what are they agreeing to? And you have no idea what they're agreeing to either. Okay, so your contract should be clear, concise, and also that you need to understand it as well. There shouldn't be anything in there that you don't understand. So takeaway from that is that a clear contract creates a calmer client experience and a stronger project foundation. It's a great starting point. Okay, so what else should your contract be doing? It should be creating protection for you. So this goes both ways. A contract protects you. It also protects the client. The reason why you have a contract is on the client's behalf as well, because it protects them from anything that goes wrong. It holds everyone accountable to the same agreement. And this is what makes it so valuable. So when emotions are getting high, everyone's upset or stressed that there's, they're just walking around on plywood and there's dust everywhere. Memories can get fuzzy about what that conversation was initially about the agreement. And situations can get complicated. And you're not relying on verbal conversations or old email threads. You have something in writing that was signed by both of you that you can easily go back to and say, oh, here's who is responsible for this, and here's how we're going to handle this because my contract says that. And so your contract can help protect your time, how often you're going to come to a job site or how often you're going to revise a design. It can protect your money by making sure you get paid and how much your retainer is and who is going to pay for mistakes and are you charging your time when you're dealing with deficiencies. It's all that can be clarified in the contract. It protects your boundaries, especially with your work hours. And this is another thing where it's going to be your backbone. It's going to hold you accountable. If your contract says you don't answer emails on the weekend or after 5 o'clock at night, then you shouldn't be doing that. And you know that your contract says that, so don't do that or write an email and have it delay send. So you have boundaries in place to help you have a healthy life and have you be a happier designer so that your client can have a better design. It can also help protect your intellectual property. So like your designs that you put together is your intellectual property, and the client can't take that design and go use it for their friend and say, hey, friend, I just redesigned my house and now I'm going to be your designer taking these plans from my designer. So that is your intellectual property. Like one of the things that has come up in conversation over the years with other designers is like sometimes clients will ask for CAD files. No, never give CAD files to your client. Give them the PDFs, but the CAD files belong to you. You don't want them to manipulate or change something and have it come back to you and you be responsible for it. It gives you the ability to photograph your project. So if it says in your contract that the client will give you access to the project to photograph it if you wish for your portfolio, then they are agreeing to that and they have to give you access to the project at the end for photography. And of course, there can be parameters in place if, not revealing any personal information of the client unless they're okay with that. Or you might have a client who needs you to sign an NDA, and then you can have in the contract that you won't be photographing the project. So that would protect the client as well. And it also protects your process when delays, changes, or cancellations can happen. So there should be clauses in your contract that say changes may happen. Designer's not responsible for decisions made by the contractor or the client when the designer is not present. So sometimes early on in my career, like a contractor and my client would get together, have a discussion on the job site without me, make a decision, and then it cost them thousands of dollars because they made the wrong decision because nobody asked me. So I am not responsible for that poor decision. That would be the client or the contractor. They can work it out between themselves. And so this is also where payment terms matter so much. So it can clearly spell out the deposits, the retainers, when invoices are due. Are there late fees applicable if they don't pay their invoice on time? What's refundable and what's not? If you're supplying products to the client, is any of it returnable? How are purchasing funds handled? So can they wire you money? Do they have to write a check? What's going on with that? And then what happens if a project is paused or terminated? So I definitely have a clause in my contract that says that, and I always talk about this with the client, like, you don't know what's going to happen 6 months from now. Sometimes tragedy strikes. We don't want that to happen, or something good might happen and your priorities shift and you don't want to pursue the project any longer. And I always say that's not a problem. The moment that you communicate with me that you want to stop the project, we will stop, and then we will invoice for anything that was due up to that moment in time. And then we will close the contract and apply retainers and all that stuff. So that's great to have that in there in case something does come up and all of a sudden the client's like, oh my gosh, so-and-so is in the hospital. We don't know if we can even think about redoing our house now for the next year or so. Let's put this on pause. And so they know that they can do that because it's in your contract. It gives them peace of mind, but also helps you get protected in case someone like a bad actor might say like, oh, well, I never liked your design, so I'm not going to pay for anything that you've done. Because they signed a contract that they are going to pay you for any design that you've done, then they are responsible for that. And if photography matters for your business, which it does, it needs to be in there too, like I said. So if you have a finished project and you want it in your portfolio and you want to put it on your social media or use it for marketing, you can't leave it to chance that just the client is going to be amiable and let you back in their house. It's best to have it in writing that they will let you do that. That's why I always strongly encourage new designers to not DIY their contract. So I would recommend getting a contract lawyer to review your agreement. I do have a recommendation I can give you, and I'll put that in the show notes, of someone who I've used myself who has templates, but then can also modify your contract or review one that you already have. And she can then adjust it, make sure you're compliant with your area and all the things that you are wanting to do to make sure you're covered in liability. So yeah, have a contract lawyer review it, make sure that everything's up to par with what you are saying that you're going to do for the client or what the client's responsible for. And don't just borrow someone else's template and hope for the best. You have to actually verify, because each area, jurisdiction has different requirements. And so you might need an extra clause or two in there to make sure that you are covered. One thing, I went to a conference many years ago and there was a contract attorney there, and he said that one of the most important clauses to have in your contract was an arbitration clause, and that to specify that if you go to arbitration, it will be in the city that you live in, that you are doing work in, because otherwise you might have a client or a project anywhere in the world and they can ask to have arbitration in, I don't know, Florida, and you're in California, and that's going to increase your costs. So you can require that arbitration happens in your own city. He said that saved so many designers a lot of money. So there's a little clause for you that you want to have, but there's so many others that might apply to your area or your area of expertise too. So definitely check with a contract attorney or a couple of them if you want to make sure you have all your bases covered. All right. The last thing I'm going to touch on that your contract should do for you is that it creates professionalism. This is kind of the overlooked part. Nobody loves contracts, right? And you might call it a letter of agreement to kind of make it sound less formal, but it's all saying the same thing. And a strong contract, though, tells your client that you have a real process. It really just assures them that you're a legitimate business, that you've thought through how you work, how you design, and that you're not just winging it from project to project. It helps to reinforce that you're a professional guide and not just a creative person with good taste, that you actually have structure, you have responsibility, you're ethical. All of this does wonders for building client trust in you. And for new designers especially, this is powerful because you might not have that 20 years of experience yet, but you're still growing in confidence and you have a strong process, but a strong contract can help support you while you grow. It just really gives you a good look. It gives you structure to your business. It helps you hold your boundaries, like we said, and it makes it easier to lead the client well. And it keeps you from making emotional decisions in the moment. So there might be times when you're like, okay, well, just this once, I won't take a retainer. Or just this once, I will do 5 versions of my design for you instead of 2. And so, no, you don't need to. Just because you're feeling emotional in the moment, go back, pause, and say, like, okay, no, this is what the contract says. This is how I work, and this is how I work best. If they don't want to sign your contract and want to move on to a different designer, that's fine. You probably saved yourself a lot of stress. Also, keep in mind people who might want to adjust your contract. Now, there might be something like, I think I had an attorney one time a client attorney who read my contract and was like, oh, you actually need to add this in there or something like that. And that was fine. But there's other people who are like, well, I don't like that you take a retainer. So I'm going to cross this out in your contract and then I'll sign it. Don't take that person as your client because they are not respecting how you do business. You don't need to work with them. If they're already making changes from the start, they're leading the project, they're leading the design, and why are you even there? So that's a huge red flag. If they're like coming back and fighting you on your contract, you just say, this is how I work. You can take it or leave it, right? So that's a good thing to keep in mind. It gives you something to lean on and helps you not to be emotional. Or like if something goes wrong, product shows up damaged, then it helps you understand who's responsible. Can I bill for this? Is this my fault? Is this the contractor's fault? Is it the vendor's fault? And like, how does my contract address this on who pays for it? It really gives you support in that way. You don't have to make those exceptions. Just say, this is how my process works. And that shifts matters. So professionalism is not just about having beautiful branding or a polished website. It's about having the systems underneath your business that makes a client feel safe working with you. And your contract is one of those systems. So a strong contract will help you operate like a real business owner and not just a talented designer. Having a contract and what you should put in your contract is definitely something we cover in Launch Your Business Bootcamp. So if you are thinking about starting your business, then we definitely cover all of this in Bootcamp because it's so important. And I know that having a contract sometimes can be intimidating. So like if you want support in developing yours, then we can do that together in Bootcamp. Okay, so that's all about contracts. Not super sexy, but super important. And it really is your business bestie. So like I said, we work on this in Bootcamp, but we also work on contracts in My Design Mentor. If you're in there, if you want to just have professional help on what you should be putting in your contract or anything like that, you can sign up for My Design Mentor. And just remember, your contract's not just your paperwork. It's not some stack of papers that someone signs. It's really important what goes inside. It's your strongest support system in your business. And so let's make sure you are covered in all different ways. All right, that's all I have for you this week. Next week, we'll have another great episode. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.